Welcome to another edition of Whiskey, Games, and Nerd Stuff. Today's whiskey we'll be talking about here in a moment, and today's nerd stuff is TINDERBLOX. TINDERBLOX is a fun dexterity game from Alley Cat Games, and this will be another in our series of what whiskey would you pair with what game. So I happened to get this game, I want to say I've had it for a couple weeks now, and in thinking about this particular series, the first obvious one that popped in my mind to pair with this was Fireball. But, to be honest, I'm not a fan of Fireball these days. And I really didn't think it would quite go with TINDERBLOX as a pairing would go. My next thought was Campfire from High West Distillery, which would have been a great pairing, especially thematically, with you're building a campfire, and the name of the whiskey is Campfire Whiskey. But that usually runs about $70+ a bottle, $70 to the $100 range, depending on where you're at. And what I've been trying to do in this series is I'm trying to match a whiskey and the game itself as close to price points as possible. And when I can, I want to be able to get that whiskey and that bottle under $40 or under $50. And what's great about this is this particular game, you can get it on Amazon right now for under $15. If your local game store sells this, I always recommend going to your local game store. But with this being under $15, if we want to try and stay under $50 or $40 for a price point with the whiskey we're going to pair with it, that kind of narrowed down some of our selections. So with that said, I went with something that you could typically get between the $20 and $25 price point, something that I like, and then actually goes with this from a thematic sense. And that is Jack Daniel's Cinnamon Spice Tennessee Fire Whiskey. So let's go ahead and open this up. We went ahead and poured some of this. Let's take a sip. Yeah, so obviously this is something you're not going to drink all the time. But this is a good drink to have as kind of that pregame. And again, thematically, I thought that would be a good pairing for this particular game. For those that are not familiar, TINDERBLOX, you are basically just building a campfire. And you have these little cards, and you start off with your fire logs. I'm going to go ahead and move this before we spill it. And then you take turns flipping over a card. And then when it's your turn, you got to follow the instructions on the card. So this card is take the brown log and a red fire. And what you have to do is do it with these little tweezers. And then you place it on the fire. Then the next person would go. And then what would happen is if you have the hand symbol here, you would have to do it with your non-dominant hand. And then you would continue to build your fire until somebody knocks something over, and that's the person that would lose. So I thought, again, keeping in line with what we were trying to do is what is the price point and the game that we can keep under a certain range. And right now I'm going to see how many of these can we get to be within that, under that $50 range. But of course there's going to be some that we're just going to have to blow past that. And then, what goes with it thematically, what would you drink with it? Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of Fireball. Here's where I think Fireball could be the good pairing with this. If you're at a bar and you bring this game to a bar with a group of friends and you have just something set up to say, okay, the first person who knocks it down has to buy Fireball shots for the group, and then do it that way, that could be fun. Personally, I would rather drink, again, Jack Daniel's Tennessee Fire. I like mixing this as well with drinks that require kind of that cinnamon type of whiskey to throw with it. But, if you want something thematically at a higher price point, you could go with that Campfire High West. Really would love to hear what your thoughts are on what whiskey would you pair with TINDERBLOX. TINDERBLOX being a game where you're building a campfire, and it's a dexterity game. Would love to hear comments in the comment sections of what games that you would think would make a good pairing with this. Would also love to hear what your thoughts are on various cinnamon whiskeys and what are some of your favorites. Are you a Fireball fan? Are you a Jack Daniels fan? And for those out there, the High West Campfire was not a cinnamon whiskey. That was just a thematic choice that I was kind of throwing out there. But on the cinnamon side, what are some of your favorites? What are your go-to? Well, what are some drinks that you like to mix it with? And then I would also love to hear in the comment section, what other games would you like to see paired with whiskey? And what are some suggestions, some ideas out there of specific games that you would like to see, paired, or a specific whiskey? Say, hey, I came across this whiskey. What would you pair it with? And then if I can get this to work right, I'll go ahead and hopefully towards the end of this video, I'll have that little pop-up will show a prior pairing that I did and see if that works. Would really appreciate everybody taking the time to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Again, would love it for those that comment in the comment section. Do appreciate everybody taking the time to watch these videos. And until next time, folks, cheers.